It starts with a myth, a rumor whispered through travel blogs and online forums. The Philippines is beautiful, but it's expensive. For years, that idea kept many travelers away, imagining white sand islands guarded by high prices and exclusive resorts. But what if that belief was wrong? What if, beneath the surface, the Philippines was quietly redefining what it means to travel well on a budget? Because beyond the Instagram filters and luxury vlogs, there exists another story of local goose houses overlooking endless coastlines, fishermen who invite you for breakfast, and landscapes so rich you forget the price tag altogether. This isn't just a story about cheap travel. It's about value, community, and the unexpected generosity of a country often misunderstood. What do you think? Could the most affordable paradise be hiding in plain sight? If stories like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more of the world's hidden connections. And tell us, where you're watching from. For many travelers, the Philippines has long been an enigma, a tropical dream framed by turquoise water and palm silhouettes, yet burdened by one persistent reputation: that it's too costly, too far, or too complicated to explore. In glossy travel magazines and curated influencer feeds, the Philippines often appeared as a destination reserved for honeymooners and high-end adventurers, where private island stays and resort villas defined the narrative. But that story only told a fraction of the truth, because somewhere between Manila's humming streets and the quiet islands of Siargao, Palawan, and Bohol, a different reality unfolds, one that reveals how perception can deceive and how beauty doesn't always demand luxury. The misconception began decades ago, shaped by geography and comparison. Neighboring countries like Thailand and Vietnam built reputations as backpacker havens. Their networks of hostels, buses, and street markets finely tuned for budget travelers. The Philippines, scattered across more than 7,000 islands, never fit that mold. Flights between islands seemed daunting, ferries unpredictable. To many, it looked like an adventure reserved for those with deeper pockets and endless time. Yet the locals knew something different. They knew that the real Philippines thrived not in opulence, but in warmth, in a kind of hospitality that couldn't be priced, and in experiences that cost little more than a shared smile. It often begins with a single realization, usually when traveler steps off the plane in Cebu or Davao and feels the first rush of humid air, thick with the scent of salt and diesel. They discover that the Philippines isn't defined by resort gates or travel brochures, but by people. A tricycle driver offering a ride for less than the price of coffee back home. A family-run carinderia serving adobo and sinigang beside the road, where a full meal costs barely $2. A bamboo homestay on the outskirts of El Nido, built by hand and maintained with pride. Here, expensive isn't part of the vocabulary, because value isn't measured in currency, but in connection. Still, the myth persisted. Many international travelers, especially from the West, assumed that island hopping or exploring remote provinces would drain their wallets. But what they didn't see was the ingenuity of a nation that learned to make travel sustainable, communal, and profoundly human. From shared jeepneys to affordable island tours organized by locals, the Philippines quietly built a travel culture that rewarded openness and curiosity far more than wealth. And slowly, the myth began to unravel, not through glossy campaigns, but through word of mouth, through the stories of those who came with caution and left with gratitude. In the Philippines, economics and emotion often share the same language. What outsiders call budget travel is, for locals, simply life as usual, an unspoken culture of generosity where kindness is the true currency. It's in the way a stranger will insist you join their table during a fiesta, or how a boatman might extend your island-hopping tour just because the sunset feels too beautiful to end. You'll notice that in places like Bohol or Dumaguete, people don't treat visitors as customers, but as temporary family. That quiet kindness forms an invisible economy, one that cannot be listed in guidebooks or travel apps. Economists might explain this as a gift culture, a deep-rooted Filipino tradition where giving is more valuable than gaining. But for travelers, it becomes something more personal, a realization that comfort doesn't always come with a price tag. Here, you might pay a few pesos for a tricycle ride, but you receive directions, laughter, and life advice free of charge. Even in the bustling heart of Manila, amidst jeepney horns and skyscrapers, that same generosity thrives. A city that once intimidated visitors now welcomes them with stories, food, and friendship, proof that wealth in the Philippines isn't always financial. Sometimes it's emotional. The deeper one travels into the islands, the clearer it becomes that the Philippines' most valuable resource isn't beaches, it's its people. In Siquijor, an old fisherman might lend you his snorkel mask with a grin that says, "Just bring it back tomorrow." In the mountains of Ifugao, families open their homes to hikers, serving steaming bowls of rice harvested from terraces that have fed generations. These gestures, repeated quietly across the archipelago, weave a pattern of trust that defines how the country welcomes the world. This hidden economy sustains local tourism in a way that large resorts cannot. When a traveler stays in a homestay, eats at a market, or rides a local boat, their money ripples through communities, fueling education, supporting crafts, and preserving traditions. It's a cycle powered not by corporations, but by connection. Ironically, what began as a so-called budget destination becomes something far richer. Travelers find themselves paying less, yet receiving more friendship, more authenticity, more meaning. In a world where travel often feels commercialized, the Philippines reminds us that the best journeys are the ones that feel human. And that truth sets the stage for something deeper. What the idea of value really means, and how a country once dismissed as too expensive may actually be redefining wealth itself. Somewhere between the quiet beaches of Romblon and the neon chaos of Manila, travelers begin to understand. Value has nothing to do with numbers. It's a lesson the Philippines teaches slowly, through moments that can't be bought. Like watching children play basketball barefoot on a dusty court at sunset, their laughter echoing to the palm trees, or sharing a plate of halo halo on a humid night, surrounded by strangers who already feel like friends. These moments shift something within you. You realize that the Philippines doesn't sell experiences. It shares them. It's a place where a family will insist you take the last piece of grilled fish, even when they have little. Where beauty reveals itself not in perfection, but in generosity. And in that generosity lies the quiet magic that turns budget travel into something transcendent. Every peso stretches further here, not because prices are low, but because hearts are open. The true secret of traveling the Philippines on a budget isn't about being cheap. It's about being invited into homes, into stories, into a rhythm of life that sees connection as the ultimate luxury. In the end, the Philippines teaches that value isn't measured by how little you spend, but by how deeply you feel. The real wealth of this country is emotional, stored not in bank accounts, but in shared meals, borrowed guitars, and waves of laughter that echo through island nights. When travelers return home, they rarely talk about prices. They talk about the people who gave directions without asking for tips, the families who offered food when the rain began to fall, the sunsets that made time irrelevant. Those memories linger longer than any souvenir ever could. So perhaps the question isn't, is the Philippines expensive, but what is value worth? In a world obsessed with luxury and convenience, the Philippines offers a quieter revolution, one where generosity, humility, and human connection become the new definitions of wealth. Because sometimes the most priceless journeys are the ones that cost almost nothing at all. In the end, stories like this remind us that the world's borders may divide us, but its experiences always find a way to connect us. From bustling city streets to remote island shores, the Philippines shows that richness isn't counted in coins, but in moments, smiles, and shared humanity. Travel here, and you don't just see the country. You feel it, and it stays with you long after the journey ends.